Please, please, please do not fill up your sink and just drop all your brushes in the sink. The fibers that you use are important. How tightly or loosely packed the fibers or bristles are is important, and where you hold your brush is super important. Would you be open to a makeup application masterclass? Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the only 7 makeup brushes you need. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about makeup brushes, which are my favorite, which I would recommend, and like how many makeup brushes does one really need? So today I'm going to be discussing that. So if you'd like to know more all about makeup application and how to choose the right brushes for you, then please keep watching. Okay guys, I really wanted to do this video. I've done a video in the past where I spoke about my favorite makeup brushes, but I realized that was probably like 6 years ago and it's time to do an updated one. These are the only makeup brushes I use day to day. Now I do have like a beauty blender dupe sponge, and if I choose to wear eyeshadow, I have 3 brushes that I use for that. But I'm not of the thought school that you need a full set of brushes. I think the average man or woman is not even getting this beat day to day, and they can survive on less brushes than this. I also want to talk about how I store my brushes, how I travel with them, and how I clean them. So let's first talk about the different fibers used for brushes. So you basically have 2 different fibers, and of course these brushes are dirty because I had to use them today, but you have synthetic fiber bristles, which usually are 2-tone, and then you have natural fiber brushes. This could be from goat, a pig, a cow, I'm not sure, but a lot of the brushes that I use are goat hair. If you're vegan, if you really care about things like that, then go for synthetic. But in my opinion, both brushes are necessary for different things. I like synthetic brushes when I don't want the bristles to soak up a lot of product. So oftentimes you're going to see foundation brushes are synthetic because you want all the product to go onto your face so you can get better coverage. So for me, synthetic equals more coverage. Now on the contrary, I like to use a natural fiber brush when I want a more diffused look, when I want lighter coverage. So for blush, natural fibers equal less coverage, less color opacity. So you're not gonna have like a patch of pink on your cheek. You'll get a nice pink flush of color. That's pretty much my go-to based on how to choose between synthetic and natural fibers. Also, how closely packed the bristles are is going to tell you a lot about your application. So let's look at these 2 brushes. This is an all over fluffy powder brush, and this is a blush brush. Now I know you can probably tell these bristles are a lot more spread out. This is a lot more fluffy. The bristles are not tightly packed. There's a lot of bristles. They're kind of shaped to where you have a lot of movement and flexibility within the bristles. That is going to be great for giving you a more diffused look. So when you are applying your loose powders, your setting powders, unless you're applying like a powder foundation, you really want to use a fluffy brush because less densely packed bristles equals a less intense look, less color payoff. Once again, when we're talking about blush, I want to have a diffused look, but I want to get a lot of color on my brush. So these bristles are more tightly packed, meaning when I dip into my blush and apply it onto my face, I know I'm already going to have a lot of color to work with, and I'm going to get nice color payoff because this is tightly packed, more tightly packed than something like this. Same thing goes if we talk about smaller brushes. This is a brush I use for my concealer under my eyebrows. It is a tightly packed synthetic brush. So from that, we can ascertain I want to have a lot of color payoff because it's tightly packed, and I'm also going to get a lot of intensity in this concealer because it's a synthetic bristle brush and the hairs are not absorbing the color. That's what you want most times when you're applying concealer under your eyebrow. You want it to pop. You want it to be visible, to look very crisp and clean. So that is why I use a synthetic tightly packed brush. On the contrary, this is what I use for my highlighter. Now, with highlighter, I like a diffused highlight. I don't want it to look like old school circa 2004 where we were just getting into highlighter and it was like literally a light bulb on your cheeks. So this is a fluffy brush. You see how the bristles are very forgiving, and it has natural bristles. It kind of soaks up some of the product so it's not too intense. That kind of gives you guys a reference point when you're choosing a brush. So let's say you don't like a lot of coverage, but you are looking for a foundation brush. I would go for a stippling brush. Now, a stippling brush is nice. You don't have to use a lot of product and you get a really airbrushed look, but it's not the best for coverage. It's more so just for like a light wash of, you know, one coat of foundation. You could also use a sponge, which soaks up a lot of products, but it's good if you want to apply a liquid and you want it to be very blended in. Because this soaks up product, it does some of the blending for you, so you won't look like you have on a mask. But on the contrary, if you want to apply concealer with a sponge, you may have to apply more because this is soaking up a lot of color. That's kind of like just an intro. Now I want to talk to you guys about my favorite brushes that I use day to day. Let's start with eyebrows. These are the only two brushes I use. They're both by Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is the number 12. It features an angled synthetic fiber brush, which means I'm gonna get good color payoff, which I need because have you guys seen my natural eyebrows? And it's also very stiff, which means I have a lot of control when I'm applying the product, and you really want that because you want precise brows. If I were to use an angled brush that is not very stiff, it just kind of feel loose and it would give me a more diffused look. But because I use a gel pomade, I really want to make sure those lines are precise. And on the other side, I have an eyebrow spoolie, and I just use that to blend out the eyebrow product. Then to apply my concealer, which is the Benefit Boing Concealer, I use this synthetic tightly packed bristle brush, and this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills number 18. You could also use something like this for eyeshadow, and we'll get into that in a moment, but it helps to give me nice color payoff and opacity with really sharp lines because this is a very tightly packed brush. So this is perfect for precise work on your eyebrows. Let's move on to kind of the order of which I apply my makeup, everything like that. My favorite foundation brush of the moment, this is the Sephora Pro Airbrush Blush Brush number 54. But to me, it's interchangeable as a foundation paintbrush. Right now, I'm really liking a foundation paintbrush because I really get to control where the product placement is and how much coverage I'm putting on. And because your girl likes a lot of coverage, because I do have hyperpigmentation, I just feel that this works well. Another pro tip, where you hold the brush is also going to determine how much color payoff you get. So if you hold your brush on the tip of the handle, you don't have as much control. I mean, literally pick up your brush right now and hold it by the tip. You don't have control. You're gonna get a very light placement of color. You're not gonna get the best control and coverage. But if you hold your brush where a painter would hold their brush, you get a lot more control. It's easier to hold it because nice brushes are weighted and they're made in a way that it's more comfortable for you to hold it right here, kind of next to the ferrule of the brush. So you hold it there, you get a lot of control, and you can get really nice color opacity and coverage. It is a blush brush, but really you can use your brushes in whichever way works best for you and your precise needs. The next method of applying foundation that I also love is my Beauty Blender dupe. This is from Beaky from Amazon, and I believe they come in a pack of like 5 to 6 for about $10. I love this. It is 99% similar to the Beauty Blender, a little less squishy, but it's the best that I have tried so far. And I am using certain foundations that are very, very matte, such as the NARS Soft Matte Complete. You can't work that in with a foundation brush because it dries so quickly because it's so matte. So I'll use a wet Beauty Blender. I can also use the pointed edge of this for blending my concealer. It works really well, but it is going to soak up a bit more of the product. I should also say that I've been using this brush for my concealer as well, and it works really well. I like that. Okay, after foundation and concealer, my next step would be all over setting powder. So I use the Laura Mercier Loose Translucent Setting Powder, obviously in the color translucent. And this is the brush that I use, once again, because it is very loosely packed and it has synthetic fiber bristles. Actually, these might be natural fibers. or maybe it's both. They don't sell this brush anymore, but I will link something similar. Basically, I like using this because it's big, it's fluffy. I can use it for all over powder and it doesn't make me look like I have too much intensity. If the bristles in this brush were more tightly packed, I would look very cakey and dry, but because they're kind of loosely packed, I just get a nice diffused wash of setting powder, which is the purpose. So I've been using this and I love it. Okay, after setting powder, I will go in with my bronzer, and this is my favorite bronzer brush. At the time, this was limited edition from MAC, and I've had this so long, I cannot see the numbers. I want to say this is the MAC 138. This is a natural fiber, really flexible bristle brush. So we already know that it's going to give us a lighter wash of color. It's going to soak up a little bit of the product. So natural fiber bristles are great for powders because you don't want powders to be looking too pigmented. It is also shaped like a dome. It's tapered, which is really nice for me because it gets right into the socket of my cheekbone. I've been using this for well over a decade. I will find something similar if they no longer sell this, but this is my perfect brush for bronzer because it fits in little crevices in my face. I can use it to apply my bronzer across the bridge of my nose, on my jawline, my temples, everything like that. And it's also still fluffy, so you can blend it out really well. And if you're noticing how I hold this, because I don't want it to be a stripe of bronzer, I hold it from the end of the handle because that gives me a more diffused look. So once again, the fibers that you use are important. How tightly or loosely packed the fibers or bristles are is important, and where you hold your brush. If I hold my bronzer brush like this, it's gonna look very intense, but if I hold it from the end of the handle, it looks nice and diffused. Then I move on to blush. My favorite blush brush that I have been using for decades is the MAC 129, and this is just perfection. This places product so well and blends it out. Once again, if you take note of where I'm holding it, that's so that it's not too intense. If I want it to be very intense and have lots of control, I'll hold it near the ferrule. So I really love this blush because I can place my color on one side, like on the flat side of the blush brush. Then I go directly at a 90-degree angle and I can blend it out in circular motions, and it just gives me a nice wash of color without being too intense because I want a diffused look. Even when I'm wearing my bright blushes, there's not a one size fits all, one right answer for everyone. Depending on the formulation of your blush, you could have liquid, cream, powder. There's gonna be different brushes that work best, and also a preference in terms of what you like, what feels most comfortable. This is just my favorite. Okay, and lastly, because I don't wear eyeshadow day to day, my last brush is going to be a highlighter brush, and this is from Sigma, the Tapered Highlighter F35. It's a loosely packed brush with natural fibers, and I'm holding it from the tail of the handle because I don't want my highlighter to be very intense. So this kind of just gives me a diffused look, and I hit the high points of my cheeks, right on the tip of my nose, and sometimes on my chin. I love this. It's tapered, it's small. You can get it in small areas of your face. It works really well. I have also used a fan brush in the past. Now, a fan brush gives you even less coverage than this, so it's really nice if you just want like a hint of highlight on your cheeks. I find that this is most multi-purpose for me. Okay, now I want to talk about eyeshadow brushes because I don't use eyeshadow brushes anymore, so I don't have mine easily accessible, but I do still know the staples and the things that I would recommend. So you want to have 2 shader brushes, 2 fluffy blending brushes, and 1 pencil brush. 5 eyeshadow brushes should be enough. Those are just the staples that I think work well. So first, let's talk about shader brushes. That is for applying precise color placement more often than not to the lids of your eyes. I really love that because you get a nice color payoff. Once again, a shader brush is going to look most like this, but a lot of time it's going to be a little wider. So you get really nice color payoff without having to do too much. Lots of times the bristles are very tightly packed, so you get good color payoff. And you can either have them in synthetic or natural fibers. My favorite would be the MAC 239. That is a white-haired goat bristle brush, I believe. believe. So it's not the best to use for darker colors, which is why I would recommend something like this. There is a MAC similar version that has synthetic fibers such as this, and I would recommend that for darker tones just because you don't want to stain white bristles, or maybe that's just me, I'm a little OCD. But those are the two shader brushes that you need. They're called shader brushes because they're literally for just applying color. Next is where blending brushes come into play. I have a few that I like. My favorite is always going to be the MAC 224. If you've been on YouTube for decades like myself, that is the brush that so many of us started with. It is a very fluffy, loosely packed brush, so it's really great for blending out your crease areas or any lines of demarcation where you want it to smoothly blend out. It is very pointy though, so I only use it on myself to blend out. Like if I put something on my lid and I want it to blend it out into a darker shade, I would use the MAC 224. But when I am laying like my transitional colors, which I put on the part right above my lid, I will use this brush from Sephora, which I will pop on the screen. It is a dual fiber synthetic brush, which means it's not going to soak up a lot of product, but it's very, very fluffy and tightly packed. So you really get a lot of control when blending out colors, and it helps your smoky eyes specifically not look too harsh. So I love that brush so much. I do need to get another one, but something like that that's densely packed is going to be great for buffing colors out and making them look very, very seamlessly blended. I also think you need a brush for precision work, so I'm going to recommend a pencil brush. A pencil brush is perfect for applying colors to your lash line. So a lot of people don't like using eyeliner. They like using a shadow and smudging it on their lower lash line. You could use a pencil brush for that. You could also use a pencil brush for putting color placement in your outer V, and then using like a MAC 224 or that Sephora blending fluffy brush to blend them out. So a pencil brush could be used for tight lining your eyes, but they could also be used to place product for a more precise look. So I think a pencil brush is really, really necessary as well. And that's it, guys. Those are all the brushes that I use. My staple 7, and also the brushes that I would recommend to you all. Don't feel overwhelmed like you have to get 25 brushes. I don't think the average woman or man is going to use that many brushes. Also, how I store them in a cup with beads in the bottom so that I can see all my brushes when I'm using them. I travel with them in a case like this that is shaped like a triangular trapezoid because they can all fit very nicely in here. And I'm also going to try to find these nets that I used to have. I don't know where they are, but they're basically like a little plastic net that you can place over your bristles to keep them kind of all uniformed and protected when you're traveling. I would say that's very important because you don't want to get somewhere and all your bristles are going every which way, and now you have to do your makeup and it's like, how? So I will link that down below. Also, how I clean my brushes, I use Johnson's baby soap, and I use the generic from Walmart or Target. I find that that works best. Because I'm not doing makeup professionally, I don't need to use alcohol. I don't need to sanitize. So Johnson's baby soap or baby shampoo is really great because it's very, very gentle, and you want to use something gentle because makeup brushes can run you upwards of $100. I think this was like $40. You don't want to use regular hand soap that's very, very harsh. So be mindful of that. And then when I'm washing any sponge, I use the Beauty Blender Cleanser, which is a solid. It's like a soap, and that works very, very, very well. Now, my last tip is about how to wash your brushes. Please, please, please do not fill up your sink and just drop all your brushes in the sink. You see this silver part of the brush? That's called the ferrule. That is one of the most important parts of the brush because that's where all the bristles start. So this handle, if it's a good brush, it's wooden. You don't want to let water seep into this wooden handle and then have mold on your bristles. So please, whatever you do, do not fill up a sink or a bin full of water and throw all your brushes in there, please. Just run some water, then just go like this You want to keep your brush upright so that nothing is flowing into this wooden part and getting it moldy. Like, please don't destroy your expensive, nice quality brushes. That can be horrible. So I just pretty much run water in my hand. I put some soap and then I swirl it around and I set them on the edge of my counter near my sink and let them dry overnight. So those are all of my tips, guys. I feel like that was a pretty thorough overview, but if you have any more comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below and let me know, would you guys be open? I feel like a lot of people watching kind of want to learn about makeup application. Would you be open to a makeup application masterclass? So this would be a class that I could do either one-on-one or in a class setting with maybe 5 or 10 of you guys, where we can spend a few hours and learn all about the ins and outs of makeup application. If you would be into that, I'm trying to see what things I could offer you guys. Now, it would be a class, so it would be a price, but let me know if you would be interested in something like that, because I love teaching, as you guys can see, and I would love to help you guys better be able to apply makeup so that you don't have to pay makeup artists all the time, because I've never done that and I want you to have all the tools and skills that you need as well. So let me know down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Love you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.